Hey there, this is Jackson from Crunchy Red Fruit, and we're going to talk about the September 2022 release, which is called River Stories. And if you're a member of the circle, you're getting either 3 or 6 bottles of wines that are grown right next to rivers. And not only have the wines been grown next to the rivers, but really the region and the history of it is shaped by the influence of those rivers too. It's something that if you study wine, you'll recognize so many wine regions have proximity to rivers because rivers moderate temperatures, rivers provide a way to get your product down river to market, and rivers provide disease protection sometimes, and sometimes they reflect sun. They do lots of things, and they really help wine regions grow, as well as irrigating. I almost forgot that one. So we're going to start with a wine from Hungary, and this is 2019 Royal Tokaj Company, Ferment. And Ferment is the grape. It's the grape of this Tokaj. It's also the grape of sweet Tokaj. And this is a confluence of 2 rivers that are called the Tisza and Bodrog that are in eastern northern Hungary. And what I love about this wine is that it has the influence of noble rot or botrytis on it. And that's something that if you've ever had a Tokaj au jus, which was my first exposure to this region and this grape, Tokaj au jus is like a very sweet, concentrated dessert wine made with the influence of noble rot, which is one of the only types of rots or anything of that nature that is actually positive in the vineyard. Pretty much every other type of rot, mildew, disease is going to really ruin your harvest or make it difficult in the vineyard. But botrytis, when you apply it to white grapes like this, will actually concentrate the sugars and the acids and change the flavor profile. So that's when you smell honey and ginger and some kind of spicy browned apple notes and things like that. Saffron is another note. Those are the influences of the botrytis mold. When it's in a dry wine that finishes really lean and tart with high acidity like this, it's really pleasant because you have this rich, spicy thing going on, but also this really crisp, tart thing on the finish. I think it's super interesting and super cool. We're going to go to another river in Europe, but we're heading to France this time. This is Domaine de l'Écu, Ensemble. This is a blend of 3 different vineyard sites, the Domaine de l'Écu, which is one of the great producers in this region. This is a 3 vineyard blend. And they are on the Loire River, which is the largest river in France, one of the largest rivers in Europe, and it goes from central France all the way out to the Atlantic. And there's many grapes grown along the Loire, but right at the very end, right as it's getting closer to the ocean, you'll see a lot of Melon de Bourgogne grown. And this is the Muscadet region, not to be confused with grapes that sound like it, like Muscat or Muscadel. The grape here is Melon de Bourgogne. And Domaine de l'Écu does an amazing job. This is concentrated, but it also has that classic salty oyster beer foam kind of note to it, which is really typical for these wines. Man, this wine's salty. This is a perfect seafood wine. So if you're going to do oysters or crab or lobster, anything of that nature, this is a perfect thing to pair with it. Just like the Ferment, very dry. There's some fruit here, kind of like some tart green apple skin. But really it's more about the salt and more about the mineral in this wine. And I think it's really exciting. Perfect for seafood again, so you'll have to check that out. This third wine is something that we did a longer video for. So yesterday, I went down to the Columbia Gorge. I just drove there from my house, where I'm at right now, and we drove straight down to the Columbia Gorge, 4 hours each way, picked up about 30 cases of this wine, and drove back. And while I was there, I got to sit and talk with Julia Bailey Gulstine, who is the winemaker and kind of the mastermind behind this project. And this is Loop de Loop. So if you're ever in the Gorge, you should definitely go visit them. This is our 3rd time using Loop de Loop wines in one of the Crunchy Red Fruit boxes because we really believe in what they're doing. Regenerative agriculture, trying to restore health and microbial activity to the soil. It's a really noble and beautiful effort that they've undertaken there, and I think the wines are just stellar. This is Pinot Gris. Have you ever had a Pinot Gris that looked at this color? Not many people have. This is actually what color the grapes are. They actually have this rosy, dark red hue in the vineyard. And you can take Pinot Gris, aka Pinot Grigio, and you can press it immediately off the skins and turn it into a insipid white wine. You can also let it hang out with the skins and get a little bit orangey, or what they call Romato. And you can take it a step further and let it turn into almost like a quasi-red wine. So I wouldn't qualify this as orange wine or rosé. It's closer to a red wine, and they even call it borderline red. But why did I pick this? I just thought it was captivating and really interesting, and it's really complex. This is a wine that I would serve at around like 55 degrees Fahrenheit, where it's a little chilled, but it's not super cold. You also don't want to serve it super warm. I think this is a nice one at cellar temperature. Just amazing. Please watch the video that we made on this. It should be posted underneath, where I actually talk with Julia, and she'll tell you more about the wine itself. Now we're gonna go, that was a Columbia River wine, right? Columbia Gorge, and it's the largest river in Washington, Oregon. Very crucial to the growing of grapes nearby it, right? Because otherwise it might be too dry in some places to grow grapes. Another dry region, and we're gonna talk about this, is the Maule region in Chile. So we're going to the southern hemisphere now, and this is the Maule River, which you actually have to paddle in a canoe across the Maule River to get to this winery. This is Gonzales Bastías, Tinaja, or País on Tinaja. And País is the grape. Tinaja is the clay aging vessel that this wine spends its time aging and fermenting in. It's an old school winery. These vines are 200 years old, which is unheard of in the wine world. There's hardly anywhere that has 200-year-old vines anywhere in the world. Maybe a few in Australia, the occasional one in Europe that's survived phylloxera and multiple world wars and depressions. But these vines are absolute survivors, and everything is done by hand here. They press these grapes with their feet and their hands through bamboo slats to kind of crush and extract the flavors and colors and a little bit of bitterness. I think this wine's so cool. It's just very fragrant. It's got this medium pale red ruby color that kind of tricks you because you think it's just going to be thin, but you get it on the palate, and this wine really has stuffing and substance. Very cool. Lots of strawberry, lots of kind of cherry notes, Rainier cherry, Bing cherry, and this pleasant, beautiful bitterness that comes on the finish, and nice little tart acidity as well. I would recommend this wine with pizza. You can do it with all sorts of food, though. It's a pretty flexible food wine, in the same way that like Beaujolais or something else like that, that's kind of a medium to light-bodied red. This wine is coming to us also from Washington State, but it's a different river. It's the Yakima River, which is one of the tributaries of the Columbia River. And this is the 2020 French Creek Mourvèdre. And French Creek is the name of the vineyard, but it's really close to the Yakima River. And this is made by Devium. Winemaker's Keith Johnson. He is one of the winemakers. He's the winemaker at Sleight of Hand Cellars, which is a very good established Washington winery. But he kind of had a thought to depart from that. And while he's still the winemaker there, he wanted to start his own side project. It's kind of like a really good lead singer starting a side project from a really good band. And he wanted to explore low intervention wines and regenerative agriculture and viticulture. So he's working with vineyards that are organic, that are doing really cool things to restore soil health and soil life. This is his Mourvèdre. Mourvèdre is so fascinating in Washington State. It doesn't taste like Mourvèdre from anywhere else in the world. Lots of roasted strawberry, lots of fresh herbs like thyme and rosemary. It's just fragrant. If you're going to drink the Devium, I would recommend that you decant it at least an hour ahead of time, because this is vastly different than when I opened it this afternoon, a little bit earlier. It really needs a little bit of time to open up and air out, and it changes quite a bit. So, I find too that the texture is better than when I first opened it. It was a little like thin and bright when we first popped it, but it just needed some time, and now it's broadening out and getting a little bit more weight. Really cool stuff. Really excited to be able to pour that. And now we're going to go with another, what we might call a Rhone variety, even though Mourvèdre and this wine, a Grenache, are originally from Spain as the DNA grape material. But we're going to go now to the Rhone River, which is a very important river for winemaking in southern France. And this is from the southern part of the Rhone River, right near Châteauneuf-du-Pape. This is from Lirac. And this is Domaine de Gris, 2017, Les Sables d'Arène, which means the sand soils or the sand in the arena. And this is Grenache, grown on sand soil, super fragrant, lots of roasted fruit notes here. So like roasted jammy strawberries and cherries, just boisterous. Lots of orange peel and rosemary and lavender going on underneath that. And I like to say that Every country red fruit release kind of needs a big hammer of a wine. It's good to have one every once in a while. Not everything's going to be a super light, airy red. Kind of needs something with some density and some substance and some weight. And this is a perfect example of that. This is definitely for your grilled food, for a steak or flank steak, grilled chicken, grilled vegetables. I think some fire roasted or smoked carrots would be really awesome with this wine. That's it. That's the 6 wines we have. Please watch the video with Julia and I. She has such interesting thoughts about viticulture that I think you'd love to hear from her. And enjoy these river stories. And thanks for being a member of the circle. Hope you enjoy these. Cheers.